that Waterfall and Agile differ culturally. Now, it's interesting, historically, I'm going to go to the historical point, and then I'm going to talk about the cultural part of it today. Historically, what you get is the people using Waterfall were, managing these big projects, sort of big iron, as we would call it. Mainframe applications, hundreds of thousands of transactions a day, that kind of stuff. Very much, process oriented, which quite frankly, in fairness to them, it has to be. If you've ever been in a system, made a small update, and it's made a mistake, it's a bended software that's doing 100,000 transactions a day, it's actually horrible. I can't even describe the pressure that builds while you're trying to fix it. So it tends to be very, very, careful in movement, cautious, risk averse in its nature, and the people doing it because of the type of work they're doing. Agile, and I'll say in its earlier days, was much more like the Wild Wild West. Hey, let's build a new app. Let's build a website. Oh, a website, yeah, that's on that internet thing. I'm going back obviously a distance. So what you'd find is that Agile was originally used for the development of new things, whereas Waterfall was used for the maintenance and enhancement of existing things. So that was originally where it came from. Now, as you move forward, those lines are much more blurred. The reason being is Agile has moved really directly into the mainstream of software development and project management in general. So as a result, you can't really describe those as cultural differences. What I would say is they're both trying to do the same things, at least in bigger systems where Agile is being used. They're just using a different methodology and level of steps to get there. So I'd say it's very, very little cultural differences in that type. What I would say is that you still get Agile used sort of in its freewheeling type way in startups and smaller firms, when things are being developed for the first time, where the prototype can truly become the product, which obviously can never be the case when you're thinking about it in a large company. Let's say you're running a large accounting system. You can't say, hey, let's throw in a new transaction and see how it works. And we'll do the debits this week, and maybe in a couple of weeks in the next sprint cycle, we'll do the credit part of that. It just doesn't work that way. So I would say is that they've really very much met in the middle. In fact, to the point that that Waterfall now, if people using Waterfall methodology, will be iterating and using sprint cycles a lot in the development of the software component. And people doing Agile, they'll need to have their project approved. They're going to need funding. And if they're going to need funding, what are they going to need? They're going to need a scope and probably some type of functional specification in order to get permission to build a project. So as a result, the cultural differences are much less. It's the same people, a lot of Agile, a lot of Waterfall people being trained in Agile. So I think that's less of an issue now than in fact it ever was.
I hope you enjoyed that mini bite from ProjectBites.com. Project Bites is a platform of project management, education, inspiration, and PDUs, all in 20-minute units, videos, podcasts, live events, and special learning paths. $45 a year for individual subscribers and special pricing for project teams of 5 or more. Start your 7-day free trial today at ProjectBites.com.